Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today for the Over 50 Job Market webinar. These monthly free virtual events are being sponsored by Careers Advance. My name is Lisa Panarello. I'm the founder of Careers Advance, and I'm the head of all services, including career coaching, assessments, personal branding, public speaking training, and professional development. And I'm going to be your host. I want to start off by saying, I get it. I understand the fear, the anxiety, the frustration, even the deflation that comes with job searching. I mean, this process stinks at any stage of a career. And we've got executives that are looking for high-level roles that are far and few between. We have entry-level folks that are not experienced in how to deal with people and the work environment, even the job itself. Some folks have experience and no degree. We have others that have been laid off, or maybe they're returning to work after raising a family. And there's even more that find the job that they're really great at doesn't exist anymore. I mean, everyone has their liability in the job market and seems to have to reinvent. Now, I've been a career coach for more than 17 years, and I can say I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers. And I'd be naive to think that after today's webinar, you're all going to find new employment tomorrow. But I can promise that if you stay open-minded and stay tuned in to today, you will gain some fresh perspectives and walk away with some tips and techniques for doing things a little differently and help you re-energize your campaign. And that being said, today's event is being recorded. So if you're on my distribution list, you will receive it in a week or so. If you're not, write me and I'll add you to my distribution list. And you can even LinkedIn me, send me a connection request, tell me who you are, because I'm going to be posting it there as well. And you'll surely be able to find it on the gallery section of my website, careersadvance.org. Well, let's meet our panelists. Amy Soricelli, one of my favorite people. She has been in career services, staffing, and recruiting for over 35 years. And she didn't start when she was 10. As Vice President of Career Services at Berkeley College, she leads a team of more than 20 dedicated professionals across 8 campuses. And she partners with literally hundreds of employers in the tri-state area to develop internships and job opportunities for students and alumni, both recent and aging. And prior, Amy managed a full life cycle recruitment at Taylor Gray Employment. Amy holds a master's degree in specialized services and education, and she's a published poet. I love that unique fact. Next up, Jasmine Briggs Rogers. Jasmine is the founder of Creatively Inspired Coaching. She's a consummate resume writer and a certified social and personal branding strategist. Additionally, she serves as Director of Career Services at Berkeley College's New York City campus. Prior, Jasmine was a recruiter and trainer at NADP, a private nonprofit organization providing workforce development and case management services for people living with chronic illnesses and disabilities. With a master's in transpersonal psychology, Jasmine has spent the last 10 years supporting clients in discovering their personal genius, defining their brands, and transitioning into a career that they love. Really excited to have both of you here. And last but not least, John Martin. John has over 30 years of experience in organizational development, recruiting, and staffing. He's currently the Director of Human Resources at Princeton University, where he provides senior directors strategic guidance on all HR-related activities, from professional development, competencies assessment, compensation and succession planning, to talent management and employee engagement. His prior roles include HR business partner at Dun & Bradstreet and senior HR generalist at Chase Bank. John is a senior certified professional with SHRM and holds both a bachelor's and a master's degree in communication from Rowan University. Wow, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience at our fingertips. And while I dive through our questions today, if one comes up in your mind, please throw it in the chat box. We'll address as many questions as we can during the conversation, as well as the Q&A session at the end. And whatever we don't get to, please follow up with us, reach out. We're happy to help after today. All right. First question is really kind of what's been on my mind and what I look for my clients particularly is, where are the age-friendly companies? I mean, do they really exist? Who's hiring? Who's really interested in us aging candidates? Well, I want to throw this to you first, Amy. I mean, job campaigns have always been, required diligent effort. And the quarantine has made it even more difficult to search for opportunities. So can you share what you know about the age-friendly companies, where they are, where we should be looking?
Well, to be completely honest with you, the first thing I think you need to do is to Google age-friendly companies, companies that hire over 50, companies that hire over 60. Then take a look at LinkedIn. Take a look at some of the profiles of seasoned candidates. Where are they working? How long have they been working there? What does that say about them? You want to take a look at some of the articles that are written about company culture and the companies that keep their employees. There are companies out there that keep their employees. What does that mean? That means they have an older workforce. You want to take a look at some of the companies that have been around for a good long time. Chances are their employees have been around for a good long time. Some of the new startups that sound really exciting and invigorating, they might have the first knee-jerk reaction of, I want people like me. So I wouldn't necessarily dive into that immediately, but I would actually take a good look at companies that are friendly. I did a quick search. We've got KPMG, General Mills, Pfizer, Kimberly-Clark, United Way, Atlantic Health. All the health companies are friendly to over 50. Anybody who's now a competitor of Pfizer, General Mills, KPMG, are friendly to over 50. So remember that whenever you find a company, you've got the 17 different competitors of that company. So I start with the Google search.
It's funny. I think we would all earn a lot of money if we got paid for how often we mention Google. It's one of my favorite sites to go to, and you can literally type in the questions, which I did like you, age-friendly companies, and you will see some lists and a good place to start. I'm a big fan of targeting our job search. So that's a really great tip to just get out there and do some research. John, can you add some color to this? What are your thoughts about, what are you hearing about age-friendly companies?
Yeah, I think in many ways, the landscape certainly has changed. I think it used to be when I was first starting out there in HR that, that whole thing, and I know we're going to talk about this, about being overqualified and, for positions and things of that nature. I think that stigma seems to have gone away. And I think more and more organizations are valuing the wisdom and the, the importance of, someone who's been around the block a couple of times, who knows how to get the job done. And I think that's a work ethic that is established in a lot of people who are, of our age, for speaking for the larger group here. I would also say, just being in higher education after being in corporate, that higher education is a great opportunity for people who want to go to a place, be able to really make a contribution and stay for a while. We have a lot of, I think our average age right now for length of service at Princeton University is almost 20 years. So that's pretty significant. And I think, again, higher ed is just a great place for you to come in, build your skills, and do lots of great work, whether it's an adjunct faculty member, and anybody over 55, that would certainly be a great opportunity for you to talk about and teach the things that you know really well. And there's lots of opportunities, in particular at the community college level now, given that most of the classes are online. They're looking to beef up their staff. And just coming into higher ed in general is a great opportunity for folks who want to find a position at a certain age.
Good to know. I mean, you kind of, both of you hit on the major industry points there, healthcare and education. So good places to start if you haven't already dove into those industries and really investigating. Excellent. Great. Thanks. All right. So let's move on to this next question, because as you are approaching these age-friendly companies, well, what are they looking for? I asked the same question to during all my webinars, whether it's my executives, the early stage webinar, what are the skills and the abilities that are in demand today, particularly though in this case for our aging, our seasoned, our well experienced candidates, because it may be a little different. I think it's critical for all of us on the call today that to understand what are they looking for. And I know it's going to be in a job description, but it might help to sort of get a little perspective here from our colleagues. So John, why don't you kick us off there? What are you seeing or hearing that companies are looking for specifically from that seasoned professional?
Yeah, I know certainly for us and the positions that we've recruited for, and I would just imagine even in this particular job market, flexibility and resilience will be probably two of the things you'll read about the most. The ability to come into an organization and, you came in on a job that was posted and you're given a job description, but, a month from now, something happens and you got to change. You have to be able to explain how you have been in those sorts of environments to understand what's involved here, and being able to be flexible, be able to, pivot if you need to be able to take on some either different responsibilities or new responsibilities, and being able to do so willingly. So I think those are two, key competencies, if you will, that I would definitely suggest you work with. And also, technology. There's really too much of a negative perception that after a certain age, you tend to lose your edge on technology. And I think that, 6 months living on Zoom probably has cured some of that. But I think that, being able to understand Google Docs and the ways that people communicate and collaborate these days, just staying on top of that. And there's free training on that in LinkedIn that you can get into. And also, I know the Monmouth County Development Office sponsors such training sessions and others, again, mostly free or low cost. And I think there's a lot of value in being able to stay on top of technology so that you're not left behind once you do land a position, and can immediately jump in and start collaborating using the technological tools you've got.
Wow, two real important skills you just mentioned: adaptability. Change is constant. So being able to prove that you can change in a dime, flip a role or a function that you're performing, or being able to adapt to an environment, because the companies are changing too. It's not just that we need to, it's the company and they're made to be changing direction. So that's key. And we can't say enough about technology. There is no industry or role that is not being impacted by automation. And I was just having a conversation with my brother last night about just technical learning. I'm not a good learner. And I've had to become more patient in learning certain functionality like Google Docs, or even just being able to navigate certain things on the computer, because yes, it's a necessary skill that we need, but it's also going to benefit us because we do need to evolve with the world. So it's a good thing. So learning to talk about technology, and your point, free stuff out there for training, do a YouTube video, read an article about it, talk to friends that are in technology, and sort of get some lingo in your head about that so you don't seem aged because you can use some new words.
Right.
Great stuff. So Jasmine, what are other skills that you feel our seasoned candidates could really benefit from honing? And how can they do it in this sort of virtual world?
Sure. So I would say from seasoned candidates, recruiters are looking for that level of professionalism and communication. Right now, having great communication skills, written and verbal, is amazing. So you're not using text speak, you know how to write a proper email. I think, as well as, can't say enough about being digitally confident, and I would say using social media as well. So when someone is looking you up, they see a LinkedIn profile that's built out, and they see that you're engaged on social media, and that you have the ability to keep up with the times, as well as sales skills. Even if you're not in a sales role, we are always selling ourselves. And so with the ability to get into an organization and sell yourself to your team and work with a team. And I think that as a seasoned candidate, can you mesh with the team that's in place? And do you have the level of emotional intelligence to really collaborate with the team?
Got it. Adaptability, technology, communication. Great skills to focus on.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more point. One of the other things that I know that we have been looking for, as we're looking for candidates, is also someone who can learn fast and be a team player, because I think that, especially for those who are over 50 or 60, being able to come into an organization and talk about how you can pick things up pretty quickly, and, how you can learn new tasks and learn new responsibilities, and how you want to work as part of a team might go a long way to having people understand why you're interested maybe in coming in at a ground floor role versus, anything higher than that, coming in at, a VP level, even though you've been working for 30 years.
Right.
At that, but I want to be part of a team and to learn something new. I think that's important to impress upon the recruiters and the hiring managers you talk to.
Well, it's a good point. And I think it kind of addresses a question that Doris is asking. She says, do these employees realize that some of us are retired, not necessarily looking for a large salary, but really a way to be useful and productive? So in my opinion, it's going to come down to the role that you're applying for and how you're marketing yourself towards that. If you're applying to an executive role, then it's not just about being useful. That's a heavy role. So I think you want to direct your efforts towards a role that is a way for you to be useful and productive. But I get that point. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that later on today.
If I can just add in
Please.
To the skills, it's great to get all of these wonderful technical skills. You can learn them all, and it's great. We can add them to our resume. We can walk around telling people, guess what I learned? And I think the key is not saying it that way. You have to stop yourself from being on an interview and your, newfound enthusiasm. I can Google Doc and I can do this now. And wow, did you learn that this morning? We can't help it. I'm from the days of rotary phones and yellow pages. So that's the only reason I'm great on LinkedIn, because I remember what it was like to get hung up on. I don't get hung up on LinkedIn. I will connect to anybody now. I'm a queen for that reason. Send me back to the dark ages and I wouldn't be as successful. My daughter reminds me every day, I know you know how to do that, Mom. Don't say it like that. Like, I should have known that already. So when we talk about our skills and our computers and all the things that we know how to do, put it on your resume when you own it. When someone says to you, do you know how to do a pivot table or whatever it is, do one before you say yes, because we know Murphy's Law is going to be the next interview where they're going to ask you to perform some great act that you really don't know how to do. So confidence is important, but we show our age every time we open our mouth. We have to be really careful about our enthusiasm. Like, don't put Instagram and Facebook on our resumes.
Right. And don't call it the Facebook. Well, you kind of led right into the next question here, because it is about self-marketing. I mean, there's no way around it. We have to market ourselves. The resume is still a critical tool, and LinkedIn has become a must-have place to market ourselves in today's digital world. More than 92% of recruiters actually use LinkedIn to vet candidates. So Jasmine, kick us off here. What key tips, because you're really an expert in this, can you provide for our candidates in making one's aging brand attractive, viable, and make them stand out amongst the competition?
Sure. I think the first step is to really define what your brand is. What is it that you're bringing to the table? What's your message? What do you, and I hate to use this word, but what do you want to be known as an influencer? If you're an influencer in your field, what are you specializing in? Once you know what your message is, you want to have your LinkedIn profile speak to that. So I always say, make sure you have a picture. Make sure you have a background photo that speaks to what your brand is. Take away LinkedIn's generic title and make it something exciting. So instead of just like, for me, Director of Career Services at Berkeley College, I have resume writer, career counselor, Director of Career Services and Higher Education, bringing strategy and purpose to career management. So all of these different titles and something that speaks to my brand. In your about section, it should be a conversation that you're having. 80% professional, but 20% personal. People want to get to know you. This is how you'll stand out from the competition, is by telling your story. We also connect to stories. Remove dates too that are not relevant. No one needs to know that you graduated from college in 1982 or wherever you graduated. You don't have to have jobs on your resumes from the beginning, or your LinkedIn profile from the beginning of your career, especially if they're not relevant. And you can even consider, if they are relevant, removing the dates.
Good point. The dates can say a lot. I mean, once we hit 2010, now the 1990s really, kind of date us back. And there's a lot you can do with upstaging your brand on your resume. If you haven't been working a while, put a new entry that says you're volunteering, that you're supporting a family business. You're not just sitting on your hands, so you can keep yourself present, not having your first date be back in 2006. Your summary, your skills, everything on your resume and your LinkedIn should speak to your value, should make you seem current, relevant, and customized towards your goal. You need to help the reader see you in that role. Well, Amy, why don't you kind of add some color to this too? What are your thoughts? Because I know resumes are not a fun thing to have to look at every day. So when you're seeing them, what's going to stand out for you when you go visit someone's LinkedIn page? What's going to stand out for you against, for an aging person versus a younger whippersnapper?
Well, the first thing I'm going to look at with the resume is how much words, like how much you're hitting me with. I need space in there. I want a profile statement, a positioning statement. I don't want an objective. An objective tells me we're Stone Age recruiting. I don't need to see your street address. I don't care where you live. No one really should. So I need your heading and your positioning statement to be relevant. And then I need it to be chronological and short and sweet. I want to see bullets. I want to know what you did. I don't need a lot of the fluff and the filler words. God forbid you put references upon request on that. That won't work. I'm not a resume person. Yes, I look at a lot of resumes. That's all I do. And I talk to people about their resumes. It should be no longer than 2 pages. If it's longer than that, I'm going to ask you to make it 2 pages, unless it's a CV. You can go on a little bit longer than that, but 2 pages is it. If you need to go longer than 2 pages, you're saying too much. Your LinkedIn profile is important. It should be a complement to your resume. The person who looks at your LinkedIn should then want your resume, and it should kind of look almost the same. I'm somebody who broke the rule of the dates. My resume and my profile goes back to my very first job. It starts in the 70s. I give a person a minute, take out your calculator, figure it out. Yep, I'm 62. We used to give gold watches to people when they survived at companies for a really long time. I don't look at that as a negative. When people say, wow, you have your first job on your resume. Whew, okay. Yes, I learned absolutely every single thing I know about what I do today from that first terrible job I had. It was terrible. I got paid hourly. My paychecks bounced. I got my Christmas bonus in April. It was terrible, but I learned how to be fearless. I learned about corporate paradigms, how to get on a phone and get a job order, how to negotiate. So yes, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to keep it there. I'm not going to hide my age. If you meet me in person, you're going to see who I am. This is me. So yes, I've been working since back in the 70s. It's on my resume. It's on my profile. I don't tell everybody to do that, but I've only done one thing in my entire life. My career is staffing, recruiting, and getting people jobs. Why would I remove the job that taught me that this is what I want to do? My mission started there. So that's where my stuff starts. I don't tell everyone to do that. I'm an odd bird that way.
Well, I mean, that really kind of sums it up, that and it's kind of where I do. It's what is your background and what is your goal? If your story is benefited by, if you're benefited by telling your full story, your market needs to hear that, then you have more of that story on paper and digitally. So really think about your reader and your audience. And Alfonso had actually posted this question right before you said it about how long it can be. There is no rule. It's just rule of thumb. So 1 to 3 pages. 2 pages is your sweet spot for your 10, 15, 20-year professional who is looking for managerial and executive roles. 1 page is great for your early career, but also experienced folks that are transitioning into a new career or do have a long history in one area that you want to have you don't want to have a lot of word repetition, so you can pare it down. So really look at how much you're saying the same thing. And if it's too much, then you can shrink it. So consider what is your background as it relates to your goal, and that can help you determine the length of it. The 3 pages are particularly for your C-suite, your high-level academia. So 1, 2 pages is really where you're going to hit it out, right? Great. Okay. All right. So now that if you're impressing your market with your resume and your LinkedIn, let's think about this. How are you going to impress them eventually in person? Because once the ATS system, Once the ATS system captures your resume and you're going to get that pre-screening call. So what messaging and language should candidates use to help recruiters see beyond the age and understand the value and wisdom and the diversity of their experience? Beyond like maybe how that resume and LinkedIn is going to come to life, what's their messaging to young recruiters to impress them? John, you want to give us a little head start on this question?
Sure. I think for me, some of the most effective cover letters I ever got, and I'm sure Jasmine or Amy know the better term for this, but I call it like a T-bar, where on the left-hand side, you would write down what the company is looking for, and on the right-hand side, your experiences. And this way you can directly connect the dots to show your value right away. So if they're looking for someone that manages projects and you've run projects before, have a list of those projects ready to discuss either in the phone screen or Zoom call or whatever it winds up becoming. But even in the cover letter itself, the more you can directly connect your experience to what they're looking for to show your value and the depth and breadth of your experience, and that you can solve the business's problem or the hiring manager's concern, I think that's what makes you a more powerful candidate, if you will, where they can understand right away what value it is you can add to the opportunity. I'd say stay away from how long you've done something or how many years you've done something. I think it's better to just talk about your results and what you've been able to achieve in the time that you've been working. And again, kind of make that direct connection to what it is that they're looking for, so that it's very clear to, the young recruiter, this is the one way that you might be able to come into the organization and, really get up to speed pretty quickly. The other option I would share with you is also, I love my folks in HR, been there for, a very long time, but I'm also totally understanding when somebody goes around the recruiting function and goes directly to the hiring manager and just writes them a note and say, look, I'm really interested in your role. Here's my value. Here's what I can bring to your attention. And have the hiring manager say, hey, you know what? I just got contacted by John Martin and I'm really interested in bringing him in. Could you call him for me, please? And I think you have to play both ends to be able to get yourself in there as soon as possible and kind of go around that ATS system a little bit and do that networking either through LinkedIn or through the company website.
Really it comes down to focusing on what the position needs. Put aside that they are young or that they're old, whatever their age is. But yeah, I know to a young person, they hear you have 20 years experience, they think you've got one foot in the grave already. So it's okay to keep that number out of the picture. Yep. I know, Cheryl, you mentioned in the chat here that it's kind of disappointing to remove all this valuable experience that you have. I don't think it's about necessarily removing it. It's about how you shine light on it. Just focusing on it a little bit, bringing it in intermittently into the conversation, not having a lot of information about that 20-year-old job on your resume, but paring it down a bit, just as a matter of what's relevant. But to your point, Cheryl, yeah, on applications, we may have to put in a date. To Amy's point, don't hide behind it. It is right. Why you know what you do and why you've done what you've done. So,
also on the resume, you can have a section that says other experience or prior, and just list all the jobs or things you've done before that matter to you and count. You want to mention those companies. Sure. People might recognize them or know, wow, that was a tough company to work for back in the day when it was. Those are things that you've accomplished and they should be there. You don't have to have dates on those. It could just be other or previous. One thing I also wanted to mention, when you're on the interview, if you mention things to a young recruiter, say that you follow them on Twitter, or you noticed a post that they put on LinkedIn. Let them know that you follow them on social media and that what they say matters. They can tell if you're authentic or not. If you really follow companies on Twitter, you know what's happening 7 minutes after it happened. And when you bring that up on an interview, the younger, less seasoned recruiters are impressed. That's something that you're not born knowing, and you have to be kind of finesse your way around it. So that's something I would consider. You don't have to tweet yourself. I never do, but I do follow companies that I think our students would be interested in working for.
That's a great point. And if you usually find out who you're going to be interviewing with but that doesn't tell their age. That doesn't tell how long they've been with the company. So go to their LinkedIn page. Typically, we have our photos up there. You get a sense of whether they're in their 20s or 30s. Then, even if you can't find them on Twitter, just find something's on Twitter or Instagram that's current. So you can use some of that language. I read on Twitter, I heard on this page or what have you. So you can bring some of that current information into the picture. But it's okay to go on LinkedIn. You're not stalking them. You're just getting a little information about their background. That's a great way to kind of customize your questions that you might ask in an interview.
I'm sorry. You know me. I'm a LinkedIn crazy person. So yes, you should look at the person you're going to interview with. Look at them on a Monday. And then that's it. So you're looking at their profile, write everything down. Where they went to school, what their favorite baseball team is. Look at their posts. Embrace that profile for a good half hour if you need to, and then don't return. I look 3 or 4 times a day at who viewed my profile. That's one of the places I look for leads in job development. When I see people looking at me over and over again, it's either, yay, I'm going to get a great job, or, oh no, I'm going to need to block this person. It's a very thin line between looking at a profile and what might look like stalking, especially in a potential employee and future employer relationship. So look once and then get out.
That's a really great point. We've got a question in our chat that I want to send over to you, Jasmine. Byron asks, what if they asked, like an employer, a hiring manager asks you to explain an employment gap? What is your tip for answering that employment gap question?
So I would say it depends on what the gap is, right? I think in this day and age, if a gap of 6 months is not out of the ordinary, I don't think people are going to necessarily ask you about that. But say you have a 2-year gap. It's perfectly okay to say you were taking care of family, you started a business. Just think about, what the gap was about, and make sure it doesn't disqualify you from, you wouldn't want to say that you yourself had a health crisis, but maybe you can definitely say you were taking care of aging parents. And in that time, I also volunteered, I did this. I was working with someone writing her resume who she was taking care of her parents, but during that time, she planned all the family events and all the weddings. And that became something that we highlighted and to support her in getting a job in marketing and event planning.
That's a great point. I just actually answered a question from one of our audience today prior about those shifts that you can do on a resume. If you have an employment gap, you can actually fill it up with what you were doing. Just give it professional language. You're not simply saying took care of parents. Really go into the details of managing the house finances, ordering supplies, dealing with vendors and medical doctor appointments and stuff. So give it the weight that it has. You're volunteering, especially if it's present or in between. I'm pretty sure you're doing your employment gaps. You're not just sitting on your hands. So fill in those gaps with literally what you were doing, and just keep some of the, not that the personal side is bad. This stuff happens, but pepper it with some professional language to show that you were bringing value to that particular engagement. Richard, actually, I love your comment. He says, wouldn't it be great if we could create results-oriented resumes without dates? Well, just one tip for that. If you have experience from years ago where you did generate great results, learned something, launched a new product, co-facilitated an event, or whatever the results are, whatever you learned, you can create a section, call it career highlights or success highlights, whatever you want to name it, put it above your professional experience. You could put 3 to 6 bullet points that have nothing to do with maybe your recent, but it's your past. So then there's no dates associated with it, but you get to shine light on those past experiences and those contributions, which, Richard, I appreciate you airing that word, results. If you can throw some metrics in there that define the project you're involved in and the contribution, whether it's individual or team related, that really helps a recruiter or hiring manager know you didn't just do a job. It generated an impact for the company, the department, the division, or the user, so forth.
Before you go on, can I just say one
thing?
When Jasmine was talking about the employment gaps, she's absolutely right. What is it? What were you doing? We want to figure out how relevant it is. But I met a candidate a couple years ago, and on her resume, her title for her gap was household engineer for the O'Connor family. And I said, well, that's interesting. And each bullet actually took the total care of her two parents who had Alzheimer's, doctor's appointments, all the soccer mom, but it was called household engineer. And every employer who met her thought it was brilliant. They said, you know what? That's a job, and that's a hard job. I couldn't do that job. You don't get paid for that job. The job is 24/7. So that might be a good title for those of you who have a gap with strange little bullet points. You might also find employers reach out to you because of one of those bullet points. Something strikes another person as a human being. Everybody had a sick relative. So many people have very elderly parents now who are going through that. That might be the one thing that starts a conversation from a human level and ends up being a job lead. So you want to be cautious with what you put, but we're all going through this. So put it in there.
That's a great point. You can literally Google different ways to call yourself. I actually Google because there's lots of household engineer. It's a great creative term. People know what it means, but then you're like to your point, the bullet points. So Google different titles so you can call yourself anything you want within reason as it relates to what you do. We've got a question here from, where'd it go? So Susan asks, is it better to answer a job ad or a posting on the company's website or the job board? What are your thoughts, Amy, quickly on that one? Does it matter?
It really doesn't matter as long as there are no errors in your resume and you do it quickly and then you don't stalk them. That's pretty much.
There you go. There you go. Another question is the email address. I'm hearing that AOL is a dead giveaway on age. I'm just going to say quickly, it kind of is. It is a very... it's just not used much anymore, and it is a dead giveaway. So create a new Gmail account. You can actually Google new providers, up and coming providers, so you can create a free email account that doesn't give away your age. So cool. You know what? I've got a question from Rob, and it kind of leads us to our next topic here. Best networking practices. So John, in your mind, can you answer a little bit about what is the best way to reach out to either a recruiter or a hiring manager, because it's not, or even someone at a company, to kickstart a conversation, to get beyond your current network? What are in your mind some best networking practices to sort of jumpstart some prospective conversations?
Yeah, I think that, if you wrote down a list of everybody you knew, I think you would actually be pretty impressed with how many people you know and where they can connect. So I would say, to the extent that you can, keep that running list. Also, if you have a list of companies that you aspire to be a part of, then you look them up in LinkedIn as well and look at some of those senior executives who are in charge of divisions where you might be interested in going, be it marketing, human resources, technology, or what have you, and introduce yourself in that way to be able to, at least get your name out there and get yourself exposed to. If you've been on their website or read about them in the news, that they're looking to expand or to do something, perhaps you can add something of value in terms of either your own experience or something that you've read recently that you can share with them, and just kind of show that you're up on what that is that they need and what they're looking for, and ways that you might be able to contribute if you were able to be part of that organization.
Great. Well, Rob asks, and this kind of take us further here, Jasmine, he asks, can you explain how to reach out to someone you want to network on LinkedIn? So what is some of the messaging or outreach that you can do on LinkedIn that's going to get them to say, yes, I accept your connection request and have a conversation?
Sure. So I learned this technique actually from Amy, but one of the things that I do is to compliment them. So first, look on their profile, see if there is a mutual interest, if you went to the same college, if it's something that you can use to connect. Then I would say I generally reach out, I introduce myself, and I say something like, you have a really impressive background, right? I would love to connect with you and hear more about your experiences in X industry. Do not, on the first outreach, ask for a job or indicate that you are looking for a job. Once they accept you, that's when you then would like reach out to them and try to schedule a phone chat with them or a Zoom meeting now that we're all virtual. But on that first outreach, it's all about connecting with them, because either sometimes even we have mutual connection. I get this one a lot. I see we have some mutual connections. But think about what is an interest that you share. Are you guys both in the same groups on LinkedIn? Did you work in a similar industry or for similar companies? And start with that connection, and always add a personalized note. Don't just use LinkedIn's note, especially if you don't know them.
Oh, thank you for validating my point. I have an article on LinkedIn that says, be human about it. Don't just use that default message. Do write a personal note. And you want to give them a reason to connect. So really tapping into what you think interests them and asking them questions. Listen, you don't want to go in for the kill. Hi, I'm looking for a job. People shy away from that. But you also want to be transparent, right? So you can ask them a question about their company, where they're headed, maybe their pain points, or I read an article that it really kind of connects to what your company's involved in. I was wondering if we can chat about it. And then that conversation can lead to what's going on with their company, what they're looking to do in the coming years, and see where there's an in to then add your flavor of, I've been working in XYZ, or I've had particular skills in there. I'd love to be able to see how I can to bring that talent to your company. How do we talk about that? So it's more about transitioning. You can get the conversation go quick, but just don't go in for the kill right away. So great point. All right, so we've got some networking tips up there, and feel free, again, to network with all of us and any further questions after today. Well, our job searching, our LinkedIn, our resume, our networking certainly does get to that interview. And then there's this big question, this looming question that we hear about, excuse me, that was an earlier slide. How do we handle you're overqualified interviews? We hear this a lot. We're 50, 60. They're almost assuming that we're overqualified. So let's start, John. Since many folks consider that they may look at jobs that are a level or two down from their previous position, either for necessity or for desired change. So how can candidates answer the questions around their motive for that job without seeming needy or distressed or overqualified? How do they handle that question?
Yeah, I think that the best way to do it is, of course, directly and not try to punt it. I think if they actually say that to you, I would really wonder whether or not they are putting themselves at risk for saying something so silly. But the hope would be that they would actually understand, or you've been able to communicate, your value and what you've been able to achieve over time, and not necessarily get into the whole, gee, how come you're not looking for the vice president of the job? You're explaining to them, look, I want to come in, I want to learn something new, I want to be part of a team. I see that, you're involved in these sorts of things that I'm really passionate about. And I think I can come in and lend some expertise to be able to help you achieve your business goals. Something along those lines rather than, and I also want to say that I think that sometimes people get hung up. I know we talked about this in the preparation for the call, where people just get really concerned and wrapped up in how upset they are about, gee, I don't want to be asked that question, or if I am, why are you asking me that question? I think we have to just understand that this is the world that we're in right now, and these are the sorts of things that may come our way. Get past all of that and be able to address the question head on and be able to talk to people directly and say, look, I'm here to lend some value. I don't need to be the vice president. I've had that experience. That was fun, but now I really want to try something new. And here's how I think I can come into your organization and be a part of that.
That's a great point. There's a reality to why you want that role presented that way, even if it is to be engaged and to contribute. Those are good reasons to want a job. You can certainly be forthcoming in that, and then quickly move on to the why you're a good fit for that job. And I have to say, one of the big things about where the overqualified question may come in is, are you applying for a job that you are tremendously overqualified for? If you are, but because you need a job financially or you want to re-engage, then you do need to pare your resume down so that your resume and your LinkedIn don't automatically look overqualified. Right. And this way you can shape your answers more succinctly to the job at hand. So keep in mind how you're positioning yourself on paper and digitally to the role that you're applying for. You know, if you're applying for a job that's only needs 5 years experience, don't head your resume with a 15+ year experience in that field. They'll automatically take your call. I'm surprised they would even call. You know?
I also
you may want to I'm sorry, you may want to think about not using a chronological resume and instead use something that's more competency based up front and kind of go with your experiences. And then at the end of the resume, kind of list the places where you've been. I'd leave off the dates, but you can kind of list the places that you've been. But that way you're kind of describing your value throughout your resume rather than have to do that directly in the chronological approach.
Right. They call that the functional approach. Yep. Functional resume. Great. Amy, you wanted to throw in some ideas there. Please do.
Well, sometimes a company might view you as overqualified because in their mind, you're too expensive. They see all this experience and they're going to now expect you to want the salary that should naturally go along with all of this. Or that you're going to want a lot more than this job can offer them because look at your background. You jumped around all this time. Look at you. You're amazing. So it's going to take a very careful resume and a very carefully constructed profile and then immediately on the interview being upfront. I know there's a lot going on there. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking to be the person who does this, this, and this, and then goes home. I don't want anybody else's job but this one. If you can relate to someone on a human level and someone likes you, if someone likes you on an interview, they're going to hire you regardless of your age or what you look like. It's likability. That's always been the key. So if you can convince a recruiter that you really don't want their job and you really don't want to be VP and you've been there and done that and it's not about the money, say the words.
Right. I want to make your job easier. I want to make you look good. That's the role that I want. Right. You know, Sherry, you bring up a good point, our audience member here, that interviews are a two-way street and that you say, I want to work there. That is critical on interviews. I think we forget that we should vet the company as well to vet the opportunity. You may really need a job and you may really want a job, but is this the place for you? Because if you get it and the culture is not a good fit and the role is way beyond what you can or you're capable of doing or way below you're capable of doing, you're either going to be frustrated or bored and you may not fit with the culture. So do keep in mind to ask questions of your own to find out about how they operate, what they like about working there. How many projects does anyone get involved in? Will I be involved in XYZ? Go deeper into the job posting and the company's website information that you researched so you can ask questions to really have a two-way conversation. Don't have a tennis match interview. They ask you, answer. They ask you, answer. Have a conversation. The more that happens, to Amy's point, the more you can be liked. Right? All right. So since we're on this whole interview situation here, you're not overqualified. You could present yourself as not overqualified. Come in at the market's value, at that position's value. And then at some point, you may get an offer. Well, recruiters often lowball offers for entry-level candidates because they know they're not experienced in savvy negotiation. And then they also lowball offers for experienced candidates for a variety of reasons. Either they've been out of work for a while, they assume they're going to have a long learning curve, or maybe they want to discourage the aging applicant. Put their reasoning aside for the offer and sell yourself. So, Amy, I want to come back to you. What are some techniques for gaining negotiation power to really have others then see your value?
Well, I think you first have to have a very strong sense of what you've accomplished. Be able to speak about it comfortably. The last couple of jobs where you've worked, the things that you've been involved in, the successes. Don't be afraid to talk about some of the challenges that you've had. Yes, you want to bring up your year's experience without attaching a number, but you can say things like, my extensive experience in the area of career counseling makes it almost, something I can do in my sleep, whether it's this or this. You want to be almost matter of fact about your skills and your abilities so that you don't get people tripped up on all of the years that you've done it. But at the same time, you want to get paid for your experience. You need to do research and you need to find out from Glassdoor, for starters, what are these positions paying? What are the ranges for the job you're going for? Are you completely out of left field? Things have changed a great deal. And now that I manage a budget, I used to believe in my head and would tell candidates, oh, go on the interview. There's always 5,000 or so wiggle room. They'll give you 40, but they could go to 45, sometimes 50. So don't hold back. Believe me, I know they can play around. Now that I'm on the other side, not always. They always can't. So if you want to get that extra money, it has to be thrown in from value. And the fact that you don't need to be trained, that you know more than one position, that you're someone who's incredibly flexible. You know, and use some of those 50 plus things that we know. I'm from the world where you show up every day, rain, snow, sleet, or there's nothing wrong with using some of your good old fashioned work ethic. That's going to add money to your salary. So you just need to have an elevator pitch that you're very comfortable with.
That matches the offer that you want. Right. Jasmine, what are your thoughts here? Can you add additional perspective or tips in your world for gaining negotiation power at the table?
Sure. Everything Amy said, exactly know what you want, but then also know what the market is paying, and especially thinking about where you live and the area that you're in, because it can be very different, say in New York from Kansas. But I also think when you're negotiating, think about things outside of salary that might be a good offer. Do the opportunity, and now we're all working from home, but the opportunity to work from home, the opportunity to increase benefits or, you know, PTO days. So thinking about what would make this a more attractive offer to you, and being a little bit flexible, and even knowing going in what is their schedule when you're going to be reviewed in 30 days. Is that a conversation that is had, or is it something that a company won't even talk about until you've already been there for a year?
Right. And there's certainly lots of nuances in negotiating. So we've kind of just scratched the surface here a bit, but these are good things to keep in mind. Do your homework, know what someone of your level of experience and in your state in that position is warranted, and go in with the range, because salary, to your point, Jasmine, is not the only piece of the puzzle. So if you're only focused on salary, you're going to have a hard time if they don't come to your number. So really have an understanding of what your level of experience is valued at for that particular job. Do some homework and know a little bit about your values so that you can crush it. So you can really show how you match the offer that you're looking for. And Paul brings up a good point here, that he's not ashamed about his age, being over 50. I'm bright, I'm loyal. If a company can't see my value, then I can't see their value. So I'm not going to go there. So you have to consider, what's your deal breaker and deal maker? When to you is that salary not going to work for me, and to politely decline. I need to stay in line with my career value. I need to consider the work that I'm going to be contributing here. So I actually have a tip sheet on negotiation. If anybody wants to, just email me. I'll send it to you to have some language around that. But do consider you're going to have to make the choice of whether you accept that offer or not. So you can politely decline. Unless you really need the job, we get that. So, you just got to consider what's on the table, what's on your table, and really market to your value.
You can also ask for a 90-day review, a review at 6 months. Can we revisit this when I am able to show you some results? Sometimes that works. It's kind of like try it before you buy it. So maybe if they agree to that, you're not afraid because you'll be wonderful, but it's at least a goal, and it might be worth it. It might be worth it to the company as well.
Right. See, companies don't pay salary to pay someone's mortgage. So going in there and saying, I need this salary, or demanding it, those two perspectives is not going to get us anywhere. So just focus on the value as it relates to that compensation, the whole puzzle. Wow, I can't believe we're coming on almost an hour now. So in a few minutes left, I want to tackle some additional questions here. Lakeisha says, is the cover letter the best place to differentiate your true intentions? In other words, to make your boss look good. John, you have any comments on the cover letter angle?
So my note back to Lakeisha was just, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of at least start the dialogue and have the conversation where you present your qualifications and what you can do. When you're doing that, you're not fighting to get in try that one again. Your idea is to get in for the interview. You're not necessarily asking for the job at that point. All you want to do is come in and talk to them. So the way you present yourself to be able to do that, I think at best, is the cover letter.
Yeah, some recruiters look at it, some don't. It's worthy of having it. Just don't regurgitate your resume. Start it out
Exactly.
with something related to the company, then tack that on to why you're a good fit for them. So make sure it's written a little bit creatively to engage them. Not I'm writing to apply to your XYZ job. They know that. Start with a company fact or industry fact that really tacks on to why you're a good fit. Right.
I want to just say too,
Yes.
really make sure that your resume speaks to that. Your professional summary, and if you have a career highlight section, use that as a great place to differentiate yourself, just because it's probably about 50% chance that someone is going to read your cover letter. So yes, have a cover letter. I feel like it always shows that you went the extra mile, and it's a great way to show that connection. But also, if I skipped your cover letter or if I read it second, does your resume make me want to go back and take a look at your cover letter?
Good point. You got to hit at all their touch points. Great point. Let's see. Kathleen has a question. What do you do when you're asked, why do you want a smaller company? Let's say you work with larger companies before, Fortune 500s. What do you do when they ask, why a small company or a startup? Amy, what's your thoughts?
Well, sometimes just be honest. Well, I've worked there and I want to try something different. I want to feel part of something smaller. The large company was wonderful, but I kind of felt lost sometimes in the mix of human beings. And I feel a smaller company might give me an ability to kind of get more involved in different aspects of the same company. I was there and now I can be so much more involved.
That's a great way to end off here. I have to say, this has been really eye-opening for me. I appreciate all the perspectives that you all brought to the table. I want to keep mindful of our time. So just to remind everyone on this call, we realize this isn't easy. We do, as we get older, do need to kind of reinvent a little bit. So have a little patience with yourself. Hopefully some of the tips and tricks that we've covered today to give you a little bit more energy for tomorrow's job search, maybe help you think of new ways to approach the recruiter, the resume, etc. And I want to thank everyone here so much for being on this call. Wow, we have over 74 folks on this call. This has been great. Reminder, the webinar recording will go out to everyone on my distribution list. If you're not on it, email me, I'll get you on it. Or look at my LinkedIn profile on my website. I'll get it out next week. And keep in touch with all of us. You have our names. Look us up on LinkedIn. If you have a question that we didn't get to or a new one that comes up, please reach out. We're all here to impact lives the best way that we can. And heads up, I will continue to host free live webinars every month. So keep an eye out for that invite. Next month, I'm doing one on performance reviews from the manager's perspective, and the following month from the employee's perspective, because there is two sides of the table. So keep an eye out for future webinars. Keep up the great work that you've all been doing, and we wish you the best of luck. So keep on being great and stay healthy.